Hello and welcome to the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast with me, Errol Lawson. This is a place where Christian leaders and entrepreneurs are empowered to step into their greatness and fulfill their callings to the glory of God. If you're a professional, you're thinking, I want to start my own business. There's a business in me that's going to enlarge the kingdom of God and make a difference, and you're not sure how to get started? Go to www.errollawson.com now and download our free video on the 5 core abilities of highly effective Christian leaders. You're going to love today's episode. Hey, why don't you go back and check out our over 100 previous episodes and see which one meets your need for where you are right now in your leadership journey. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy today's episode, and God bless you. Hello and welcome again to the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast with me, Errol Lawson. And my very special guest today is Pastor Douglas C. Williams. Get the C in there.
Hey.
Pastor Doug is the leader at Emmanuel Christian Center in London. Now, in the East End of London, has always been seen as the home of some pretty dodgy geezers. Thankfully, Doug Williams is not one of them. He leads a local church there, and so much more to say about Doug today. But Doug, fill in any gaps. Welcome, Doug, first of all.
Hey, thank you.
Good to have you, man. Fill in any gaps in your bio for us, first of all, please, and then give us a glimpse into what you're up to in the world today.
Gaps in my bio. Well, I was, maybe interesting. I was fostered out into care when I was 3 months old because I never lived with my parents. My father is from West Africa, from Sierra Leone. He had 3 wives, and one of them was my mum, who, when she discovered this fact, said, "You know what? I'm not down for this." So she separated from him. And I went into care. She tried to go to the States to set up a new life for me and her, and her plan was to get settled in the States, get some money, and then we'd all move up to Canada. It never worked out for her. And so I stayed in the country. I was in foster care, children's homes, until I was 8 years old with foster care, and then from 8 till 18 plus, I was in a children's home. And then eventually went to stay with the pastor of my church after my conversion. So most of my formative years were spent in care. But there was a good thing because, I was a member of staff at the children's home I was at who actually led me to Christ. And that just launched me into this whole adventure I've been on for the last few years in my life, just serving God. And I'm pastoring this church here in the East End of London, and we've just opened a school. We've got permission from the government to open a second school. I'm doing mission work, stuff's developing around us for leadership and worship, school of worship that we've opened. So a number of good things, and I think I'm getting my second wind again for mission. I've just come back from a couple of mission trips, one down into Malaysia, one into Nepal. And I'm back one from Brazil, working with some of the river pastors down the Amazon. So I'm very, very excited about
Awesome.
Celebrate your understanding of reality. Yeah, it does.
It's brilliant. Now, Doug, I know people listening right now, they're thinking, you know what, they've heard of you, maybe they've heard you speak somewhere at a church or a conference somewhere, and they're aware of the work you're doing. Where did it all begin for you? How did you transition into this ministry role at ECC? And how did you know this is what God had called you to do?
Yeah, my understanding of God's calling, of what he wanted me to do, didn't begin with me coming to ECC. It happened a long time ago. What happened was I joined from the children's home, a little Baptist church in the small village that I was living in just outside of Dover on the southeast coast. I joined this little Baptist church. And, I got involved in ministry. I mean, you didn't need to be mega talented to get involved. I mean, it's a tiny little church. Most of the people there were over 50, 60 years old. So when I walked in, I was a ready-made youth group, about 18. There was nobody else there. And I tell people, laughing, sometimes in the prayer meeting, I'm the only person in the room with my own hips, That's how it was. So you didn't have to be mega talented to get involved. You just needed to have a pulse and a willingness to step in. And I did that with some kids, and I was teaching some Sunday school kids and some youth stuff. And I remember doing one session and going home that night, back to the children's home, walking down the road, and I stopped by a farmer's field in the quiet night all by myself, standing there in the night. And I looked up to the stars and I said, God, I feel so good teaching this stuff and sharing from your word. And if this is my destiny for the rest of my life, I'm in. And I'll never forget pausing on the road that day and saying, God, I'm here. I want to do this, and I feel this is where I should be going. And I guess that was the epiphany moment. That was me going, yeah, this is what I love doing. So from there on out, with small groups and leading Christian unit at our school, getting involved in local missions and stuff. That's how it all transitioned. And I came to London. I went to a small charismatic Bible school called Christian Life College for a couple of years. And then I was, for a number of years, in music. I was in a gospel band called Paradise. And I was with those guys for a good few years until I came out of that. And I started working with Luis Palau Mission to London. I was the Afro-Caribbean liaison officer for that mission. And as it concluded, my pastor said, well, why don't you come and get involved in mission in our church and work in our local church? You've been focused on ministry. So I worked with an AOG church in Wembley with my good friend Ian Christensen for a number of years. And then I left from there and joined a man called Philip Movabia and his working partner, a guy called Lovell Ben. I was with those guys maybe 8-10 years and church planting in South London. It was a great season for me because I think, number one, coming out of a children's home, Philip Moabia became like a father figure and was mentoring. But, he had been raising churches up in South America and Guyana. And so they'd planted 160 churches in the jungle and opened a mission center. He traveled, internationally. So just being alongside somebody of that caliber and those kind of connections was phenomenal for me. Great time, good time to do that. But then after about 8 or 10 years there, I felt the Lord was leading me. I thought initially I might be heading towards America. There were a couple of invitations to go to the States. But what transitioned into was my work here at Emmanuel. I came in as the associate pastor in 1997. In 2000, the senior leader said, look, I feel I want to plant churches. I've got some more church plants in me. And so the eldership were a little bit shocked that day. And they turned to me. I'd not long been in the church, as you can imagine. They said, so what would you do if he left? And I went, well, I could work with your new senior pastor because I came here to be an associate, a co-pastor. Well, one of the options you've not mentioned is that you take over the senior. And I went, well, that's what I came here to do. Give me a month to think about it and pray with my wife, which we did. And we've been here since then.
Wow. Awesome story. And, I imagine that on that journey, your paradigm, your leadership philosophy will have changed loads. Can you tell us about a time when maybe you were heading in one direction in terms of your philosophy and your mindset about leadership, and maybe something happened that caused you to go to a completely different direction? Can you remember that story?
No, there isn't really a story like that, Errol. If I'm honest, I've never gone on in one direction for leadership and then had to change. I've just actually been a leader. I think probably what was key for me was trying to define my understanding of leadership. I was functioning as a leader, even when I was not a Christian. I seemed to have an influential voice, but it's actually defining what that influence was. I didn't know until I came into Christian things that I discovered, oh, I'm a leader. That's what I've been doing, and a communicator. So I guess basically I then think, if that's what I am, because you could tell who the leader is in a room. Okay, people are having a conversation and they just kind of linger for one person's perspective. Everybody else talking, and then they go, and so what do you think? And suddenly you realize that your voice is carrying a gravity that you didn't realize was there. And it's because people want to hear you. You may have not recognized it about yourself, but they do that. So I then started to think about, well, what is this influence? And the guy that helped me in my initial sort of studies was John Maxwell, because he actually used the phrase that leadership is influence. And I thought, oh, that resonates with me. So that was when I began to be very intentional about the study of leadership. Until then, I kind of been an influence and just thought I was just contributing something and helping things along. What I discovered was that I was a leader, and I needed to recognize it and own it, because if I didn't, I wouldn't develop it appropriately. So then I began to books on leadership. You can see them behind me right now. If this was, see my books behind me.
Yeah, it's great.
All my friends were buying, good suits and going out for meals. I was trying to scrape my pennies together to buy books because I thought, I want to surround myself with these books. I want to surround myself with minds that are much sharper than mine. And I actually believe that through reading, you could add years to your life that you hadn't actually lived. So here's a guy who takes 2 years or 3 years to research stuff and write a book. I can read it in a month. So I've packed 3 years of learning into my life in 1 month. People who read have just have the ability to do that. And so I began to be very intentional about leadership, asking people questions, bugging leaders. I mean, going to people and saying, look, can I have lunch with you? If I'm at can I have coffee with you? Can I talk to you? And just pumping them with questions about leadership. How do you stay fresh? How do you stay focused? How do you preach well? How do you communicate? People listen, that kind of thing. And so I had some good friends who saw me doing that, and I used to communicating with people as I was in the band and speaking on stage. And then one of my friends said, you're a great communicator, and I think you can keep people's attention while you speak. But I'll tell you what I want you to do. I want you to go really deep in terms of theology, and I'm prepared to pay for your first term. I mean, you don't have any money right now, but I'll pay for you to go to Bible schools. I just really believe the theological education would sharpen and deepen everything that you're about. And I went, I don't want to go, because my understanding of seminary and Bible college was that this is going to be boring and dry, academic. These people have got no faith, no passion, no fire. I want to be out there praying for people, leading people to Christ. The excitement of being on a music circuit and traveling and the dynamic. I just don't want to stop for a bunch of books. But actually, I did going to Spurgeon's Bible College to get a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and it was probably the most refreshing season of my life, just to dig deep in Christian tradition and learn how that was going to sharpen my leadership focus. Yeah,
brilliant.
Are you seriously fired up about growing as a leader in business or church-based ministry? Are you feeling somewhat frustrated about not having realized your full potential in what you've been called to do? Could you do with someone to help you get some extra clarity or to be a sounding board for your plans and ideas? Great athletes have coaches, so do great leaders. The right leadership coach for you will result in an increased sense of clarity, direction, and purpose, dramatically increasing the results you achieve. If you're ready to step up, contact Errol to book a free, no-obligation introductory coaching session and see whether Errol is the right coach for you. Errol takes the lessons learned from his own leadership journey and from his extensive research to help leaders and entrepreneurs to step into their biggest challenges and rise to their next level. Email admin@errollawson.com right now to schedule your call.
And what's been your biggest challenge so far in your leadership journey?
The biggest challenge is staying fresh. I think the thing is, after a few years of doing this, you've got to have some habits that help you stay fresh, stay on the cutting edge. My big fear is the length of tenure that I have had in leadership is that you gain a lot of knowledge, you gain a significant amount of experience, and you can do things without God's help. You can actually preach, you can teach, you can train people, you can share your experience. And, to the untrained eye, all that experience and all that learning is like, wow, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Pastor God. But see, my wife, who knows me, goes, yeah, but I heard you say the same things 5 years ago. What's been happening? What's new? So you don't want to get caught just rehashing stuff, warming things over, pulling out a notebook that you had a couple of years ago and thinking, what's that today? I just want to stay free. I want to be sure that I'm hearing from God. Now, that doesn't mean to say that everything you hear is brand new. It's just fresh. It's just that you can teach it with as much passion and vigor and excitement about those truths as you did when you first learned them. There's a flush, isn't there? There's a flush of first excitement and passion when you get an insight. You go, oh, that's a great thought, and you preach your heart out with it. And I'm just saying, does that have to dissipate with time? Can I not keep that sort of edge and vitality in communication?
That's great.
Even when I'm the long haul, you know what I mean? I've poured this into many generations and different leaders. I just don't want it to hold on me.
That's great. Over the course of doing our interviews, we've discovered that there are 5 core abilities that effective Christian leaders and entrepreneurs have. And I want to ask you a few questions about those 5 abilities now in this section. And the first one is, the first ability recognizes that the ability to create and communicate a compelling vision. How have you created and communicated a compelling vision for your business or ministry, rather? What's your process?
Well, firstly, when you say create a vision, I think there are a number of things that you're nobody actually comes to a vision in a vacuum. Let's just face that. I mean, the idea that you're sitting there and suddenly there's this download from some supernatural place somewhere that you've never had any insight. Most people haven't. Most people will get their vision through a confluence of that flow together. Some will be their own personal experience. Some will be through education. I mean, I'm sitting in a classroom at a theological education, hearing stuff taught, and I'm going, this education is shaping the way I see things. And then there's my experience, as I mentioned, the education. Then there's going to be exposure. I mean, I'm exposed to other models. I'm talking to other leaders. I'm watching how they do stuff. And then there's exaltation. I've got people who are encouraging me or pointing me in a particular direction. When all those four things flow together, you begin to see what you could do yourself. And then out of the uniqueness of who you are, your particular shape, as Rick Warren says, your spiritual gifts, where's your heart and passion? What are the abilities that I have? What's my personality makeup? You know, everybody's temperamentally wired a certain way. And my own experience, my own particular shape. I then begin to find out, okay, what's the area that I'd best fit in? And as I'm comfortable with that, for me, it's around teaching, pastoral care. I love the local church. I feel so displaced if I'm not around local church for too long. I don't mind preaching out, and I enjoy the kind of inspiration of that. But I love to come home to local church, and so I know where I belong, and I know what I should be doing. I'm clear about that, and I want the local church to have an impact in its community. So we talk about that, we share that. But basically, with vision, once you're clear on it, and once those four things have happened to you, you've just got to keep sharing it. You know, one of the things I found about vision is it leaks. So you've got to keep sharing it. You've got to keep finding stories that you can point to for the people that you're leading to say, that's what we're doing, that's what we're about. Every time you catch people doing something right, you celebrate it. And then, of course, you try and model it. I've discovered as a preacher that people don't do what you preach, or they don't practice what you preach. They practice what you practice. And so, a lot of this stuff is more caught than taught. So people will watch you, see how you do things, and it's amazing how that subliminal impact shapes the way that they do stuff themselves. So if a leader is finding that his people are not doing what he really wants to preach, it's probably because he's not him too well. Yeah, that's the deal. Yeah, I mean that's the New Testament deal, because you read the writing of Paul, the pastoral letters to Timothy, and he outlines to Timothy what an elder looks like, a leader in the Christian community. And as you go through those qualities, I read them again and again, and I thought, but these are the qualities that every Christian should have. Keep their family together, be sexually faithful, don't be after money, and committed to the word of God. I'm thinking, well, every believer should be like this. And that's when the penny clicked for me, Errol, because I realized when you look at a leader, you're not supposed to say, as a Christian in the Christian community, there goes a leader. What you're supposed to say is, there goes a Christian.
Right. And the second ability is the ability to create and manage wealth. How important do you think that is? What's your philosophy around stewardship? How does the ministry approach, or what's the philosophy for the ministry around finance and stewardship?
Issues. I mean, around finances in most churches, like I'm a pastor, I don't know who's listening to this podcast, because it could be businessmen, teachers, educators, people in politics. They're not all involved in the work that I am. But one of my big concerns around church work at the moment is the understanding of wealth. And because I don't think people who are rich are always wealthy. Wealthy could have to do with the quality of your life, the richness of your personal experience. I know some people who've got no money in the bank, but they are very wealthy people in terms of their generosity, their heart, their outlook on life, their perspective on how to serve people. So it's not all about. But when we are talking about finances, my big concern in the body of Christ is this accumulation of wealth. The idea that the more money I get, the more I either I've got the blessing of God or I've got the faith to accrue this stuff. There's just been something very pernicious about this kind of teaching in the body of Christ that I really dislike. I don't have a problem with people having money. I just have a problem with money having people. And so even some preachers are too grabalicious, man. They're using their influence in their pulpit to kind of build themselves a little bit of a nest egg. And so that is a stewardship for me. That is a stewardship. That's just ownership. We're trying to get our control over stuff. I think the best way to handle money is to be a steward, is to say, look, I'm holding this for other people. I want to know how much I can give away. I want to know how much I can bless people with. And It's just incredible. I mean, even the other day, my son came up to me. I was trying to teach him this lesson. He came and said, "Dad, I need some money for something." So I looked in my pocket. I had a little bit of money that I was going to use to travel away with on the recent mission trip. And I thought, I was putting this money away to have some living subsistence stuff while I'm on this trip. But he needs it. So I gave him the money. He said, "Dad, you don't have to do that." I said, "No, just take it. It'll be fine. I'm sure God will help us." The day before I left for the trip, a guy I hadn't seen for maybe 3.5, 4 years calls me out of the blue and says, "For 2 weeks you've been on my mind, and I feel God wants me to send you some money." And my wife today said to me, "Did you send that money to Pastor Doug?" And I went, "No." She said, "Call him this afternoon." He calls me, he goes, "What's your bank details? I'm putting this money in right now." 15 minutes later, he calls back with a text and says, "The money's in your account." And I'm going to myself, look at this. I give money away and I get more back, 10 times as much as I gave away. And so I'm looking at what God is doing and thinking, we never lose by being generous. So one of the things I would say about handling money, have a generous spirit.
Yeah.
See what you can give away. Because I've discovered if God can get money through you, he can get money to you.
That's good. Awesome. And the third ability is the ability to focus on the key things and either delegate or eliminate the rest. What's your number one activity? How do you is there a process that you use to help you increase your productivity?
Well, the only thing is number one, you've got to work within the parameters of your strength. So in an organization, when you're building a team or it's growing, you have to be willing to delegate. Now, delegate isn't me giving away stuff I don't want. I want to be strategic in my delegation. So I'm handing stuff on that's actually helping someone grow. It's not just I'm dumping. I'm not dumping. I'm delegating. And I'm delegating when I think strategically this is helping me because I don't need to do this right now. But it's helping this person because they're growing into the role that I've grown out of.
So is there a process that you use? Like, let's say you've got a task to do or something, a project you're working on. How do you decide which is the stuff that you're going to do and the stuff maybe
things that only I can do? If I'm going to delegate, I'm going to say I'm not going to give to somebody something that they can't do. I try to do the things that only I can do, and I think that's the best way to filter stuff. You keep asking yourself, am I doing what only I can do? Is there somebody else who could do this? And the thing is, sometimes they can't do it exactly as you would do it, but if they can do 85% of it, let them do it.
Yeah.
And that way you're going to, they've got some scope to grow and you've got the bulk of what you passed on being done competently. Yeah. Our frustration is that we hand stuff on to people too early or they don't have a passion for it and then it all comes bouncing back to you. And you then can't get at your priorities and the organization suffers because your skill isn't being employed at the point where it's really needed.
It's good.
And uniquely too. So yeah, I'm always trying to find what is it that I could do and what is it that I shouldn't be doing. I'm always looking to see how I can do that. And you have to do that. I mean, even for me, sometimes I have to. If I'm around, people will tend to rely on you and make you do stuff. So I am strategically absent sometimes, and I love it. And I come back in and they go, "Oh, the meeting was great. This person preached well. They taught well." And sometimes people say that to you almost apologetically, as if you get offended if it went well without you. Man, when I hear it went well without me, it's music to my ears. It really is. It really is, man.
So the fourth ability is about the team and being able to get the best out of the people you lead or in your team. And sometimes when they're not even on site, whether they like you or not. Can you think, what's your approach to building a team? And, what process works best for you? Maybe what hasn't worked so well in the past for you?
The big thing that helps with building a team is, number one, to be absolutely clear on the task. Why do we need a team? What do we want them for? Because if we're clear on the team, then the team makeup is to help me prosecute the task. So the clearer I am about what needs to get done, the easier it is to choose people to get it done. I go, well, I know what skills I require here, and I know what I don't. I'm not going to have to pick up people who are superfluous to the task. The task and clarifying the task is key. The second thing is then you go, okay, what are the elements? If you can try and break the task down, you'll know what you need and you get a complementary team. You pick people who you think can actually deliver what the task requires.
Right.
Now, that's great, and you've got to help them stay focused because the more you're clear on the task, the more cohesion you have in your team. If the task isn't clear, it all breaks down into people functioning in their own little turf.
How does someone pick that team? You say, okay, let's say somebody, for argument's sake, is planting a new church, and they're saying, I've got to, this is what I've got to do. And they're thinking, how do I build a team? They've had no support maybe from anybody else to put that team together.
You're going to
where do they start?
Like Jesus did that. You just pick up people one by one. And you go, that person, what? You do an interview, you sit down, you talk, you pray, you have a discussion, you have coffee, you have a meal, you go, what's going on? Where's the resonance here? And somehow, this is the intangible, but you're in a conversation with somebody, and you and I know what that's like, Errol. Something hits you in the heart. You go, there's a resonance here. We're actually on the same wavelength. I get this guy, he gets me. I get what she's doing. She understands where I'm going. That's a good fit. Great. You have to have those kind of conversations. And even when you have those kind of conversations, people are going to still come with their vulnerabilities and proclivities. So that's not the end of the story. You've got to be somebody that's saying, even though this person's got the core elements that I need, they're probably going to bring some stuff that I don't need. So I'm still going to, as a team leader, know how to filter that and grow them.
So how do you manage that? How do you filter that when somebody on the team is not playing ball, or they're not who they said they were, or stuff comes up that's contrary to the vision and your values? How do you handle that?
Here we do. We try and work it through, okay? I'm trying to, what the strongest issue here? Is it character? Is it competence? Is it just their complementarity? Because often I look for a complementary gift. I don't want to duplicate stuff. I want somebody that's bringing a uniqueness to the team. I want somebody whose character is mature. They can handle pressure. They can show initiative. They can manage well. They can manage, a given task or responsibility. But I also want to make sure that there's chemistry there, that they actually get on well with everybody else. Otherwise, they get turf-minded, and I don't have a team. I have a group. I have a talented group. I have a group with ability and skill, but I don't have a team because those capacities are not synergized. And so I'm very careful to look at that. And that's probably one of the key things for me. If I don't find good character there or a willingness to work with chemistry, you may have the competencies, but I'm going to bypass you. So we're going to have a good conversation. So, no, I don't kick you out straight away. We sit down, we talk. We have a conversation about why it's not working and how I think it could be fixed. So we come to a point where we go, that's what we mutually agree as a fix, and we'll come back in a few months' time and review it. And hopefully it's a win for all of us.
Brilliant.
We've got it sorted back on track. If at the end of the review where the impasse is there or the difficulty remains, then we have to work through some kind of settlement arrangement that says we can go our separate ways with a sense of dignity. It just didn't work.
Love it.
But, that's just how it is. You just got to be realistic about it.
Love it, love it. And the fifth ability is self-confidence and unwavering determination. What's been the key to building your confidence and not getting stuck in the trap of the imposter syndrome, seeing others around and thinking?
Yeah, the thing is, look in the mirror every day and say, what can you do? Who are you? And I'm comfortable in my own skin. This is why I'm not trying to pretend. I don't have to be you. You don't have to be me. I don't have to struggle at being me. So you've got to be comfortable with your own uniqueness, man. You've just got, this is the way I do it. And it may not be somebody else's. I may not be as fast as you, as sharp as you, or whatever. But this is genuinely me. And you know what? I find that there's always somebody that will love you for being you.
It's great. It's great. Brilliant.
That's where the confidence issue is there. Now, just because I'm confident, because I'm being in my own skin, doesn't mean I can't increase my competence. There's some leadership skills that can be learned. Some stuff's innate, and I knew from as a kid that I had a leadership voice, I had an influence. But my skills in terms of management, handling staff, doing appraisals, communicating vision, some of those things can be learned. So I'm happy with who I am and the temperamental shape that I bring to the leadership role. But I mean, I'm still learning. I'm still willing to keep growing. It's not a problem. But I'm doing it from a place of security. I'm not trying to learn because I feel I'm behind the curve, or I feel I've got to catch up with everybody else. I'm learning as the overflow of my own confidence in what God has made me or who God has made me.
Brilliant, man. Brilliant. All right, let's go into our quick fire round then. So real quick, what does the first 90 minutes of your day look like? John Maxwell said that the secrets of your success are hidden in your daily routine, I think he said.
Yeah, waking up, man. Devotional time with my wife and family. A healthy breakfast, that's probably it. And then, clean up, wash up, shave up, get out of the door before it's too late.
Awesome. And what other key habits have contributed towards your success?
Reading. reading and being willing to ask questions. I feel that leaders who don't ask questions are hiding because nobody is omnicompetent. Wow. You just got to read and keep learning and stay fresh. And I think it's readers who are leaders. I think you forfeit the right to teach once you stop learning.
Wow. What's your biggest weakness as a leader?
Oh, man, I think my biggest weakness is procrastination. I don't want to do things that hurt people, and I don't want to do things wrong. I'd rather, this is me, I'd rather keep walking up and down the high street when I'm shopping and look 3 or 4 times than to buy something and then go, do you know what, I wish I'd waited. And so for me, I probably wait too long sometimes because I don't want to make that mistake. So I'm in an R, should I not? Is this right? God, is it you? Is it me? Is it my flesh? Is it the devil? And so sometimes, procrastination can be my Achilles heel.
And what's to be your strength as a leader?
Kindness. Having time with people. I love people, man. I love people. I enjoy people. I find their stories interesting. I can just sit and listen to them. I'm a people watcher. I sit in an airport and I just try to map out what's going on with that family across from me. Or I wonder what the story is behind this cleaner. I just wonder. So I think studying people, looking at people, it's a strength,
Great. And who have been your top 3 most significant mentors in your leadership journey so far?
I mentioned Philip Mohibier, who for 10 years poured into my life every month and sat me down and talked about my family, life, my ministry, my health. Just everything. It was a very, very significant person. She wouldn't have said she's a mentor because I wasn't a Christian at the time. But I lived with a white lady. I'm a black guy, and I lived with a white family, a lady called Mrs. Frost, who was a very, very amazing woman. I think she was probably a backslidden Christian now I think of it. But she sent us to the Salvation Army, to the Anglican Church, but she never went herself. She married an unsaved man, but I think she was called to mission work. But it was the way she handled us as kids, the way she did life with very little at times, was incredibly shaping. So, from my earliest years, it's got to be from my Christian years, it's got to be Philip Mohibier. It's been an incredible and powerful influence in my life. And, although he wouldn't say he's a mentor. Yeah, he wouldn't say he's a mentor to me. He didn't sit down and mentor me and input my life. But I worked on the national leadership team with the Assemblies of God with a guy called Paul Weaver, who had strengths and weaknesses. But there were some things about Paul as a national leader that I have increasingly grown to say, boy, he really carried that role well. He was in it for a number of years. And, you get to the point at the end of it where you think, okay, my season is coming to a close here. But I could see some real strengths there that I think maybe even today I still remember comments and things that he said during that 10-year period of time. Yeah.
Let me dig a little bit deeper into those 3 relationships. Philip, brother, the lady you live with there, and with Paul Weaver. What's the best piece of advice you've gotten from each of those individuals?
Self. Be yourself.
Who's
That's
that from?
It. All of them. That's the significant thing in all of them. Mrs. Frost said, you don't have to be like all the other kids in this neighborhood. Philip Mohibier said, you're bringing to this team a uniqueness in terms of your understanding, your ability. Doug, I don't want you to ever change. Paul Weaver said, Doug, you need to understand there's something different about the way you do things. And you don't need to be embarrassed about that or worried about it or concerned at all, because there's something wonderful about you just being you. All 3 of them in different ways have said, just be yourself.
Great.
Don't try and be anybody else. Don't try and be an imposter. Don't try and copy. Just bring the uniqueness of how God's actually fashioned you. Yeah.
Great. It's awesome, Doug. And is there, what's the one thing you're most fired up about right now?
Oh, bro, can I tell you what it is? We've opened a school of worship. And going back to embrace a fresh understanding of the Christian doctrine of the Trinity has been so powerful for me. Because, see, for me, worship is a response. It's not an action. It's not a song. It's a response. It's a submissive and reverential response to the self-disclosure of God. And when we get to the scriptures, the self-disclosure of God is the God that we worship is a God who's revealed himself as a Trinity. He has his being in relationship. And it's the dynamism of how Father relates to Son, Son relates to Spirit, Spirit to Son, that we understand love. So you look at those relationships, you'll see affirmation, endorsement, encouragement, honor, and you think those are all the multifaceted things about love. And as I look at that and understand that, and as I respond to that, I have a worship that's responding to divine revelation or self-disclosure of love. And that shapes my life. I'm made in that image. I don't know how to be without seeing that clearly. Wow. That's been one of the most exciting things I've pushed into recently.
It's great. And lastly, Doug, is there a book or a resource that you'd recommend for a leader or entrepreneur that's listening right now?
Initially, I've worked through a mentoring group for 18 months with guys, and we walked through one of John Maxwell's books. I told you how significant it was when I stumbled into his material and became very intentional about leadership. He wrote a book called Developing the Leader Within You. And it's still my go-to book when I'm kind of mentoring or looking at this subject for first time with a group of leaders. I'd love people to go through that book. It's good. It's not a deep read. It's not something that you're going to lose yourself in terms of the theory or the academics of it. It's well written and it's punchy. It just grabs the salient points if you're involved in it. Yeah, I recommend it. John Maxwell's book, Developing the Leader Within You.
It's great. Awesome. And Doug, how does someone listening, how do they find out about the work you're doing? How do they connect? Are you on social media? You're online? Can you give us your handles?
Church website is www.eccaog.org. So that's Emmanuel Community Church International. And we are on www.eccaog.org. You'll find out about our church news. You'll find out what our podcasts are or our weekly sermons. There's email addresses there if you just want to email us in and ask what's going on. We'll tell you.
Awesome. Pastor Doug, thank you for your time today, sir.
Hey, good to be with you, man.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. God bless you, sir. God bless you.
God bless you too. Take care.
Thank you again for joining us today on the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast. I pray you've been inspired, you've been lifted, you've been encouraged to take your personal leadership to the next level. We really encourage you guys to just take action, make it happen, do something, start somewhere, go out and change the world in some way, big or small. Guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast today, please share with your friends, share with your loved ones, your colleagues, someone out there you think might benefit from hearing this great content. And if you want some more questions answering, you got a question, email me, Errol@errollawson.com. Or if you want a free 30 to 45 minute coaching session with myself around the leadership challenge or issue you're working on in your business, your church, or in your organization, please feel free to email me right away or get you booked in. It's Errol@errollawson.com. Thank you again for listening. Go to our iTunes page, check it out, check out the previous episodes, give us a nice review, that would be awesome. Really appreciate if you could do that for us. We really appreciate you just for being here and listening. Thank you so much. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Rising Generation.